Laura Carlsen is the director of the Americas program at the Center for International Policy. She joins us live from Mexico City. Thanks very much for being with us. So how do you think this is going to be rectified, the situation of all these people either crossing the border or waiting to cross the border in that area?
It's a very complicated situation, as you can imagine, Lauren, and you can see the human drama that's involved here. Basically, there has to be response from the three sides. First of all, the United States government has to realize that it is not illegal to cross the border and request asylum. People who are persecuted in their home countries have a right to do that and seek protection for themselves and their families. Right now, they're processing around 50 to 70 people a day in this Tijuana section that we just saw. And there are some 5,000 people on the waiting list. So they're purposely creating a bottleneck there that means that people look to cross the border at unofficial crossing points in order to request asylum. That needs to speed up. They should be processing at least 300 requests a day. Then secondly, in Mexico, a larger number of Central Americans, now that these exoduses are coming along in huge numbers, like the 7,000 people who arrived in October, are requesting asylum here in Mexico and deciding it's too dangerous or unlikely to go to the United States. So Mexico has to make it safer, and they have to give more permits here. And then finally, in the home countries, in Guatemala, in Honduras, in El Salvador, and also in Nicaragua, they have to provide a safe and a decent standard of living for their people so that they don't feel like they're forced to migrate. Because what we're seeing here is forced displacement.
I mean, it's interesting, isn't it, that some people are saying that, we saw in Hodera's report just there, that some people are saying that it's actually safer for them to be in custody in the US, even if they then get deported, than it is to be back home. At the moment, the deterrent effect doesn't seem to be having the effect that perhaps the Trump administration would like.
No, not at all. And the simple reason for that is because you can't deter people who are fleeing for their lives. If it's not a simple choice between do I want to be here or do I want to be there, they're leaving their homes against their will because they have imminent death threats in many cases, and they're afraid for themselves and their families. So you hear testimony after testimony, and I've talked to many of these people on this caravan saying that I can't go home because I'll be killed immediately. There's nothing you can do that will deter people, and this is where international law kicks in. They have a legal right to find someplace on this earth where they can be safe and their families can be safe.
What about some of the measures that we've seen them in Mexico bringing in changes to the minimum wage and so on? How much difference will that make to people actually not making the journey in the first place?
These measures are very important to go at what's called the root causes of forced migration. And they could have a direct impact on the number of Mexicans who are migrating. As we know, the number of Mexicans has gone way down to practically a net zero, but there's still Mexicans who are migrating, by creating decent living conditions. And on December 1st, the first day of the new government of Andrés Manuel López Obrador, they signed what's called an integral development pact between Mexico and the Central American countries to try to create those kinds of conditions, particularly on the economic side, that would enable people to stay in their home countries as well. But these are long-term solutions, and we need short-term solutions because people are living in very precarious conditions in the refugee camps in Mexico now. They are waiting to get into the United States. We have seen that detention is not particularly safe in the United States. We have the tragic case of the little girl who died in the custody of Border Patrol. So we need to have a combination of these kinds of longer-term economic solutions, ending the political crises of democracy that exist in several of these countries, and creating fulfilling humanitarian needs of the migrants on the migrant trail.
Laura Carlsen, thank you very much.